The Buckeyes of The Ohio State University will meet the Volts, the Tennessee Volunteers. Both teams 10 and 2. It'll be college football game night window at the Shoe on Saturday the 21st. And this is going to be a really exciting game. And I'm going to give a full game preview of how I think this one's going to go. And first of all, this is a heavyweight matchup. Heavyweight matchup between, on one side, you have Ohio State, a team that's got a lot to prove. Came in probably the most talented roster in the country, coming off that big loss to Michigan. They beat Michigan. Who knows? Maybe they're the number one seed in this entire thing. We'll never know. On the other side, you have Tennessee. Have kind of a shaky loss. Well, a bad loss to Arkansas. Then they had a 14-point loss to the SEC champion, Georgia, in what was a 31-17 battle. But as we go into it, I think we need to go to the real factors on what Tennessee does well and what Ohio State does well. And we'll start with Ohio State. What Ohio State needs to try to do is run the football a little bit better, just because it's going to be a cold game. And I know that it makes sense for them to air the ball out more, which they're going to need to do. They're going to need to pass the ball a lot. But when I say they need to run the ball better, they're still going to have a few big carries, a few big gains that at the very least, gets their offense moving. Because if the weather is a big factor, if it is like 20 degrees, it's going to be tough to throw the ball. Ryan Day they haven't seen this. They haven't seen this weather before, other than the games against Michigan at Ohio State. So it's going to be sketchy. It's going to be tough for Tennessee, too. They're definitely not used to that weather at all. So it's going to be tough on both of those fronts for them to figure it out. But establish the run. I think the defense, they just need to play their game. Play their game and find a way to limit the Tennessee rushing attack. That's going to be big. Caleb Downs is an incredible talent. He really doesn't miss. That's what I've been saying about him all year. Doesn't miss on plays. He had a really great interception against Michigan. Jack Sawyer has been stepping in more and more to a great role. You have all the guys, and I think they're going to be fired up. This is why they came back, obviously, to beat Michigan, win the Big Ten championship, and win a national championship. Two of those goals are not obtainable. But the one that is ultimately probably the most important, winning the national championship, is still on the table. And they'll take that. They'll take that for sure. If you go to the Tennessee side, I think Tennessee's biggest strength in their entire team is that interior defensive line. James Pierce Jr., 7.5 sacks on the year. He's really torn stuff up. He's really torn stuff up for them. And they have good linebackers as well. Their interior defense is really good. So when I said Ohio State needs to run the ball, they need to go outside the tackle. Outside, you don't want to run right into that's what they did against Michigan. They ran right into Graham, and it was just a mess. You don't want to do that. You don't want to do that into this James Pierce Jr. dude from Tennessee. That's going to cause all sorts of problems. So they need to get sideline to sideline while getting vertical, is what Ohio State needs to do. If you look at the offensive components for Tennessee, you have obviously the quarterback Nico. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that last name, but he's had a pretty good year for him. It hasn't been great. They don't live and die by the pass. This is more of a running football team. Not one receiver on Tennessee for this season has more than 700 yards receiving on the year, meaning that they're not going to try to beat you with the pass. They do have a running back, though, Dylan Sampson, who has 1,400 yards on the year. He's had a really good season. The majority of their touchdowns are on the rushing attack as well. They're going to try to run the ball. And I think this favors Ohio State still. And I know Michigan, their strength was running against them. But what I will say is I think sometimes, especially Igminosa, the corners tend to get grab happy, and there's a lot of penalties on their side. Like Oregon did a lot in the passing game against them in the game they did lose. So I think if you're looking at it, I think it favors Ohio State to have more of a run-heavy team. But at the same time, with the weather conditions, it is going to favor Tennessee that they run the ball more than they pass it. But I did think that was interesting that there's not another player on Tennessee without. I think it goes. You got one guy has like 650, and then it dips to like somebody has like 350 receiving yards. So they don't pass the ball that much. Nico's got about 2,500 passing yards on the year. That's not a crazy number by any stretch. So what I think this game is going to come down to is, can Ohio State use their talent? Can they get sideline to sideline and vertical? Can they do that? Can they get the right players involved? Jeremiah Smith needs to be targeted. He needs to be targeted at least 8 to 10 times this game if they want to win. It's something that has to be done. He's one of, if not the most talented guy in the field. They got to get him the ball. Do a jet sweep to him if you have to. Get him involved. They have to get him involved. Emeka Egbuka, involve him through the middle of the field. They need to just find a way to get their offensive talent and their weapons, their receivers involved, and they should be fine. You got to go with a more vertical attack, but as I said, you still got to be able to establish somewhat of a run offense if you're Ohio State. And you just don't want to run the ball between the tackles. You can run the ball, and I think you need to run the ball if you're Ohio State. Just don't do it between the tackles. It's not going to work out for you. It's going to be Michigan 2.0. Tennessee, obviously, their keys are try to contain the wide receivers for Ohio State. And on offense, if you're able to run if they break some runs, it's certainly possible. Tennessee is they have talent as well, nowhere near the talent of Ohio State, but this could be a really close game. I think that the fact that it's cold really hurts both teams. Maybe Ohio State more. Maybe Ohio State's more affected by the cold just because of the way that Tennessee runs their offense. But at the end of the day, I still think Ohio State will win this one. I think it'll be close. I think it'll be 31-27 would be my final prediction on this. I think it's a barn burner. I think it's a really close game. I could see like a 31-23 score as well, something like that. But I think Ohio State will win this game, but it's not going to come easy. They're not blowing out this Tennessee team unless if they get out to a really good start early and Tennessee makes some mistakes in the shoe, then Ohio State could blow them out. But if it's close at halftime, I would assume it's going to be a 4-quarter game. And it's going to come down to, can Ohio State execute outside to side? That's really what it's going to be down to. Can you get vertical enough if you're Ohio State? They weren't able to get vertical against Michigan. The offense was stalling. Will Howard cannot allow himself to throw an interception early in this game again. They were able to come back from it against Penn State. I don't know if they're going to come back from it in this matchup. But those are the keys. I think Ohio State will win the game 31-27 will be my prediction. But we'll see how it shakes up. It's going to be a really fun game to watch. College football playoff, Saturday, December 21st.